Thank you, Mr. Corman, for bringing us together, not only in Australia, but here in Perth. Mr. Prime Minister Turnbull, Mr. Prime Minister Alcantara, Mrs. Lucy Turnbull, Premier McGowan, Minister Corman, tomorrow Minister Bishop, today State Secretary Beckmeyer, State Minister Böhmer, Mr. McKenzie, Mr. Lienhardt, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for this wonderful dinner yesterday evening, your kind words, Prime Minister, today, and your warm welcome here in Australia. And thank you for the kind invitation to speak to you today. I'm very happy to be here, not least because this visit to Perth is the first time I've set foot on Wallaby soil. To me, being in Australia feels like checking in with a good old mate. I hope I pronounced that correctly. A good mate that I've known for so long time, but one who lives just a little bit further down the road. So let me start by saying how happy I am about the strong bond between our two countries. My dear Australian friends, on behalf of all my German countrymen and women in this room today, thank you for having us. Minister Corman, your initiative for this Asia-Pacific Regional Conference sends a very strong signal of partnership and cooperation across the entire Asia-Pacific region and all the way to Berlin and Munich, to Frankfurt and Hamburg, 7 time zones away. The result is impressive indeed. I'm amazed by today's list of attendees. It's a testimony to the importance of this event and to the hard work of the German-Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry and of the German Chambers of Commerce and Industry. It also highlights the successful efforts by the Australia-Germany Advisory Group over these past few years. I'm really grateful to all those who have invested their time and their expertise to make this today and tomorrow happen. I'm delighted that we not only have Prime Minister Turnbull, tomorrow Minister Bishop, Foreign Minister Bishop, my former colleague among us, but also today the Governor, the Premier of Western Australia, as well as Minister of State Böhmer and State Secretary Beckmeyer from Germany, to name just a few of many high-ranking dignitaries in this room. What an achievement, ladies and gentlemen. And last but not least, let me say a special hello to the large crowd of important business people and CEOs who have made the journey here today from Germany, from all over Australia, and from across the Asia-Pacific. I hope that this conference is a tremendous success for you, and I wish you all the best for these next 2 days. You certainly are in the right place at the right time. Ladies and gentlemen, yesterday, as our airplane was nearing Australia and we caught the first glimpse of the continent, we were amazed by endless beaches, the deep blue ocean, a sunny horizon without a single cloud. And one of us up there said, it looks like a fairy tale country. And who wouldn't want to live in a fairy tale? I can tell you that German culture certainly has its share of romantic dreams. Our very own Neuschwanstein Castle, set against the dramatic alpine landscape in Bavaria, is the symbol of German romanticism. It attracts 1.3 million visitors a year, many of them from the Asia-Pacific. And I think it's safe to say that fairy tales are indeed a universal language. They're important to people across the globe, from the Black Forest to the outback of Australia. And I think that's important. It's important to dream, to imagine what a better world might look like, and to tell a story how to get there. But the world we live in, as you know, is no fairy tale. Even hard-boiled politicians and business people find it challenging to watch the evening news these days. We see authoritarian rulers walking the world stage with ever-increasing confidence. Rulers who promise welfare and security, but withhold freedom and democracy. We see regional powers showing their strengths, bullying smaller countries and violating the territorial integrity of their immediate neighbors. We see rogue dictators threatening to unleash the honor of nuclear war and refusing to engage in meaningful dialogue. We see armed conflicts and despicable acts of terrorism, not only across the arc of violence that stretches from North Africa to Syria and Iraq, but also, as you know, in parts of our own regions in Europe and the Asia-Pacific region. And on the top of all this, we also need to face the consequences of environmental destruction and changing climate, causing natural disasters, starvation, and mass migration. Looking at all this, some people say, let's pull up the drawbridge. We must strengthen our defenses, they say, and retreat behind the walls of our castles. We can see many examples of this. When the nation that brought Germany back into the free world, back to openness and democracy in 1945, starts withdrawing from established international institutions, removes itself from free trade negotiations, and seeks to impose new barriers on trade. When the European Union, the most successful project of peace and prosperity my continent has ever seen, loses one of its largest member states. And when those who question the value of open societies and the importance of dialogue between cultures win an ever-increasing share of the electoral vote in liberal democracies. Ladies and gentlemen, the King of Bavaria built his famous fairy tale castle of Neuschwanstein for one purpose, and for one purpose only: to withdraw from a hostile world that he simply couldn't face. But you know as well as I do that isolating ourselves will not solve any of these problems. We cannot simply remove ourselves from the world. Not even kings can do that. The story of Ludwig, the King of Bavaria, did not end well, as many of you may know. He lost touch for good. Paradise was lost, and he perished. The message that we should choose a different path, the message I will give you, that we should choose a different path. If I can ask only one thing of you today, it is this: let us not withdraw from the world. Let us not give in to those who say that walls and barriers and new protectionism are the solution. Let us remain strong in our belief in openness and dialogue, and let us spread this message wherever we can. Today, I want to urge you as business leaders to raise your voices. We need your engagement not only in board meetings and stock exchanges, but also in this political debate for an open and peaceful world and for the international institutions that make such a world possible. Fortunately, Australians and Germans are natural allies in this endeavor. We share our values and objectives, and for good reasons. We are both committed to democracy, social cohesion, and the rule of law. Both our countries are trading hubs in Europe and the Asia-Pacific with strong cultural and economic ties to our neighbors. We are both advocates of open, free, and fair trade, and our economies complement each other well. We maintain reliable bilateral ties in education, research, and people-to-people exchange. And we are both determined to keep up our counter-terrorism efforts and to maintain a stable, rule-based international order. These days, it is increasingly up to countries such as Australia, Germany, and other like-minded partners to pick up the slack in international politics. We are called upon to advocate constructive multilateralism and to make sure it continues to prosper. We should be confident in sending our message of cooperation because it's working. Let me name just two examples. We successfully adopted the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, where for the first time we packaged peace and prosperity, environment and climate protection into one overarching global agenda. And we have ratified the Paris Climate Agreement, which, despite all the setbacks, the international community will continue to implement this month when we meet only a few days from now back in my home country at the United Nations in Bonn. We need more of these success stories, and Germany and Australia are at the forefront of these efforts, from our bilateral work in the 2-to-2 format to our cooperation in the World Trade Organization, at the G20 and the United Nations, and in regional organizations. And, not least, in our joint effort to conclude a free trade agreement between Australia and the European Union. I advocate trade agreements that defend the principles of free trade, but also protect our social and labor standards as well as our natural resources. Such trade agreements are more than a path to economic growth and prosperity. They can also contribute to a more inclusive, a more peaceful path of globalization. Free and fair trade cannot guarantee peace and prosperity, cannot guarantee, but it can bring people together across the borders and counteract nationalism, because open trade makes us understand how much we need each other. And when I look in your faces here today, I'm confident that the business community will remain a strong ally in spreading this message. Ladies and gentlemen, for me and my delegation, this trip to Australia is a long overdue visit to faraway friends. Friends who may live halfway around the globe, but who are nevertheless very close to our hearts. One of the things I hope to do on this trip is to learn from Australia's experience. I would like to compare notes on the issues confronting both our countries as well as our regions in Europe and Asia Pacific. Take, for instance, the question of immigration, which has become a highly contentious topic in my country, especially over the past 2 years. More than 500,000 refugees, mainly directly from war-torn Syria, have found safety and protection within our borders since the civil war began. Giving shelter to these people has been a tremendous challenge for our country, from the federal government all the way down to local authorities and civil society. And the real debate about the rules we need for the future migration policy has only just begun. I'm looking forward to learning more about the Australian debate on this issue, especially because I know that it hasn't always been an easy topic for both our nations. It remains a challenge, let me say, to reconcile the reality of the world on the one side with the limited possibilities of our countries. I'm happy to say that I'm far from alone in my desire to come here and to learn. In this room today, I'm glad to see many young startup entrepreneurs from Germany. We have also brought numerous experts on the digital industry 4.0 with us, and tomorrow I'll meet a group of young Germans who are spending time here on a work and travel program. For them, as for many Germans, Australia is a destination of their dreams. Ladies and gentlemen, I've said it before, you are in the right place at the right time. I can't imagine a better setting to compare notes, discussing conditions for future and closer cooperation, to find common solutions in a rapid changing international architecture in the international markets and international politics. I can hardly find a better setting than this conference here in Perth. Over the next 2 days, you're going to discuss an impressive range of topics, from regional and global trade to the digital revolution and the question of cybersecurity, from energy and agriculture to education and urban mobility. I can only say, let's get on with it. All of us at the conference, in daily business, in our democratic governments, and across our civil societies. Every step we take to make the world a more inclusive place can be an antidote to the lure of protectionism. Every debate, even if it's controversial, can bring us closer together. And even the smallest idea that helps to improve people's lives can give hope to those who are afraid of the future. The world we are living in is no fairy tale. But retreating behind our castle walls won't make it one. Only by engaging with the world as it is can we start to make it safer, can we start to make it a better place. And that's what I hope you will do here. Thank you so much for listening. I wish you a successful conference. Many thanks.